We are live.
Good morning. I'm Antoinette Mosley, the chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee, and I'd like to welcome you to the November 18th, 2025 remote meeting. All council members and staff are participating virtually. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud. We're streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by calling 855-925-2801 and using meeting code 9791. Again, for those of you out there with us today, welcome. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the same number, which is 855-925-2801, meeting code 9791. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers will need to push *3 to enter the speaker queue. I'll now go through and introduce all the committee members and staff who are participating virtually. Council and staff, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Councilwoman Sage Turner.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Shanika Smith.
Good morning.
Assistant City Manager Ben Woody.
Good morning.
Deputy City Attorney Janice Ashley.
Good morning.
Community Economic Development Director Nikki Reed.
Good morning.
And Community Development Division Manager James Shelton.
Good morning.
And joining us today, we also have the Housing Authority of the City of Asheville's President and CEO, Ella Santos.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ella Santos, as Antoinette Mosley mentioned. I'm originally from New York City. I've met with most of you who are here today, but I'm looking forward to meeting with some of you who are on this meeting. I know Shanika and I have a meeting scheduled coming up, but I would love to touch base with everyone else here. So prior to coming to Asheville, I worked for
Miss Hampton, excuse me, one section. We have a whole section of our agenda dedicated to just you.
So sorry.
No, that is okay. We love the enthusiasm. What I'll go ahead and do, though, at this point is to move to the first item on the agenda, if that's okay, Council. And that first item is the approval of our October 2021 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Okay, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, please. Councilwoman Smith?
Aye.
Councilwoman Turner?
Aye.
And myself, aye. The motion passes unanimously. Now, on to item 2 on our agenda, which is the introduction of the Housing Authority of the City of Asheville CEO. And I will turn it over to Nikki Reed, our Community Economic Development Director, to kick us off. Nikki.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We are so excited to welcome Ella Santos to our meeting today. As you all know, we have a lot of opportunities to partner with the Housing Authority, and we're very excited to have Ella here. We have already started meeting with Ella on different items of business for the city of Asheville and are very much looking forward to working with her on a variety of different things that we're going to do together. So Ella, if you would like to just share more about your background, I think this is really the opportunity for our committee members to get to know you as well.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nikki, for that intro. So as I mentioned a little earlier, originally from New York City, prior to coming to Asheville, I worked for the New York City Housing Authority. And there I worked with the executive office as the deputy director of the project management unit. So I am a project manager by trade. Then when I started here at the Asheville Housing Authority, I started as the COO and applied to be the CEO and was promoted. So I'm really excited to be in this position, to be able to carry out the mission of the Asheville Housing Authority and also partner with the city on a ton of different projects that we have. One of the projects that we're very excited to kick off very soon is the Deep Review redevelopment project. So just to give you an outline of what some of my priorities are at the Asheville Housing Authority is the first thing we want to do is listen. So we want to listen from our residents, our landlord, and also my team. So what we've done is that we've distributed surveys to all groups, and I'll be reviewing the feedback of those surveys in the coming weeks. And then after analyzing the results, we'll be able to share updates on how we plan to implement the recommendations we're receiving from the community. Another item that we're taking on and essentially restoring are the preferences, but we are taking on a new approach to the preferences for the Housing Authority. We are going to be, we've already partnered with the COC so that this ensures a more fairer and more effective system that meets the community needs. Another thing that we're doing is strengthening partnerships. We've been deepening the relationships with the city, nonprofits, private partners. We're also focused on building stronger connections between APD and the community. Another item that we're looking to do is really cultivate a culture of accountability, which is how we support each other. And when we take ownership and follow through, it just, trust grows, collaboration becomes easier, and everyone just thrives. So residents should be held accountable. Residents should hold me accountable to what we promise in the lease, just as I will hold residents accountable to make sure that they follow their leases. And this applies to landlords, to my staff. Mutual accountability just creates trust and overall transparency. So that's pretty much what we're focusing on for now. And I hope to meet with you all at some point just to further discuss. And if you have any questions, please feel free to message me, to email me. I also have an email for the community that's it's asktheceo@haka.org. And I can put it in the chat, but anyone can email me there, whether anonymously or just privately. They can send me a note to that email.
Thank you. Thank you. Council, any questions for Ms. Santos?
I don't have any questions, but welcome to the mountains. I look forward to having a conversation with you and lending any support that I can.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sage, anything?
Yeah, similar, just a welcome. I mean, we met in another meeting, so welcome again. And I look forward to meeting with you. But I'm also just particularly excited that you have immediately just picked up D Review again.
Yes.
So, hit the ground running, always a good sign. Welcome.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'm not going to hold you too much longer, but what I will say as the liaison to the Housing Authority, I've had the opportunity to see you at work now for 6 months, a difficult time after the storm. I believe you are amazing. I so appreciate how you immediately reached out to various partners in the community. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much.
And I have high hopes for Haka. I think it's going to guide the organization where it needs to be. So thank you so much. Nikki, anything else from you?
Thank you.
I just thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing this to the committee. And Ella, we're just so happy to have you. So looking forward to our work together.
Thank you. And I'm really excited to be able to work with all of you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and for helping me raise the standard at Haka, because that's what we're doing. I really appreciate you all. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day. Appreciate you so much. Okay, Council, on to the next item on our agenda, number 3. That's the CDBG Steady State Fiscal Year 2026 Strategy. And here to present to us is James Shelton, the Community Development Division Manager. James?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good morning, council members. James Shelton, Community Development Division Manager with the Community Economic Development Department. My division is responsible for administering the Department of Housing and Urban Development federal grants that we receive each year. CDBG, which is the Community Development Block Grant Program, is one of them. So we'll be discussing what staff are considering for our strategy for FY26 to 27. Again, we're right now in our FY 25-26 cycle. This committee and city council has already approved the funding for this year. We're now discussing what we're going to anticipate funding next year. So we're talking about July next year today. We're trying to get a little bit ahead of the game and be strategic with how we use this program moving forward. Next slide, please, Katie. So each year we get about $1 million from HUD and CDBG funds that support community improvements, housing, economic development, and public services. And we have historically provided these funds to highly capable partner organizations to implement those programs on the city's behalf in our community. The community development staff are considering a change with our FY 26 to 27 CDBG grant to include internal projects in the application process, as well as establishing award minimums to achieve greater impact. We are seeking this committee's feedback today on this proposed change. Again, nothing is set in stone. We're just looking to get y'all's feedback and reaction to a couple of strategic initiatives. Next slide, please. So each year, as I mentioned, we get about $1 million. Looking back at the last 6 years, funding, we've typically been just a little bit more. This year was a little bit less, but the average over the last 6 years has been $1,023,185. A key thing to remember is that 70% of our awarded funds must benefit low to moderate income residents. That is a key characteristic of the CDBG program, and that carries into our CDBG DR program. And that's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking disaster recovery, but this is our steady state funding that we have typically put 100% toward LMI benefit. That is not something we have typically deviated from. We deviated slightly after Helene when we established a small business restabilization program where we did some activities that were to meet an urgent need following the storm, where benefiting low to moderate income residents was not the national objective we were trying to meet. So this past year, we did not hit that 100% LMI benefit, but each year that is our goal, is to be at 100% of our funds do benefit LMI residents or neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So with that estimated grant we get each year, we're anticipating next year of a little over $1 million. We take 20% of that each year, and that helps us to pay for the administration of the grant. So that pays for staff salaries and training and materials. It makes it a fairly cost neutral program to the city. We also are allowed to use up to 15% of the grant for public service type activities. Those activities look anything like recreation activities or senior services or childcare, things that are not to build new things or support small businesses. It's really just a service-oriented thing, but that is capped at 15%. So that's usually about $150,000 we might expect. And then the remaining portion of the grant is $665,000 that we can use for other eligible activities under the program. So the total estimated grant remaining after setting aside administration, which is 80%, is a little over $800,000 we have to implement into actual activities and projects. Next slide. Just to give you all some examples of how this has typically worked is we open an application cycle in January, where we review those applications in February and April. In April, we're typically coming to this committee with staff funding recommendations, and we usually get our official HUD announcement of how much our grant for that year is going to be. We're working on estimates right now, and each year as we do our funding cycle, we're always working on estimates, and then we get our actual award notice that gives us the clear idea of how much money we can actually award to projects. Once we have that clear picture, we start our annual action plan process that quickly follows from April into May, where we have our action plan drafted and we put it out for public comment on the proposed funding recommendations. In June, we have a public hearing with Asheville City Council, and council votes to approve that action plan, which outlines all the activities and projects that are getting awarded funded for the year. And then we submit that action plan to HUD in July. So you can see why I'm here in November. Our application cycle is coming soon, so I'm looking for this committee's feedback on what that application cycle might look like so that we can be well set up to keep this timeline moving forward toward July of next year. Next slide, please, Kate. So as I mentioned, public service activities, we're allowed to use up to 15% of our grant amount on these types of activities. So that looks anything like health services, recreation services, services for senior citizens, childcare, services for homeless, education programs, or substance abuse services. Um, with this funding, we can pay for labor, supplies, materials, and facility leases and equipment. Just an example of what we've done this year as a public service is we have helped to staff and provide materials for the nightly winter shelter that is being run by Safe Shelter. That's the New Leicester Highway location that's open every night during the Code Purple season. We have funded that as a public service activity. So that's just an example of what we can do as an activity. We're not changing anything with the physical environment. We're not really doing anything in terms of supporting micro enterprises, but it is specifically to provide the labor, supplies, materials to run that service of a homeless shelter. Next slide, please. So public services are our most applied for aspect of CDBG funding. We consistently see an outsized demand for public service dollars in our annual program compared to the cap. Again, we're capped at 15% of our grant each year that we can use toward public services, but we see about a 3-to-1 demand to what we're able to supply in public service dollars each year. So it means we can't fund all requests. So what you're seeing here below is all of the amounts requested from each applicant last year. And how much we funded them with. So you can see we were asked to fund $465,000 worth of programming. We were only able to do up to 135. We could have done a little bit higher, but as we discussed with this committee a little bit earlier this year, we wanted to keep well below the cap just to make sure we didn't exceed it. But we see an outsized demand for these dollars each year. Next slide. So aside from public services, we do activities that are non-public services, and that looks like housing. This is to do home repair projects, which are typically emergency repairs to address exigent health or safety situations at single-family homeowner homes. Typically, we've seen steady CDBG funding demand for housing dollars in this program, though we saw no applications for home repair funding in the 2025 application cycle. That's likely probably due to a lot of resources that came in for home repair after Helene. CDBG is not the most friendliest of funding sources. It's a little bit difficult to deal with the federal requirements, and there was a lot of other resources available in our community. I don't know for sure, but I think that may have had something to do why we didn't see home repair funding asked for in this 2025 application cycle. We can also, in our housing side of things, fund housing services, and typically in connection with a separate award of our home funding, which we'll talk about home funding after I'm done talking about this, but partnering home funding with CDBG to help manage the home funding programs like tenant-based rental assistance or inspections or loan processing or housing counseling. Last year, we awarded about $200,000 to 2 different subrecipients for housing services. Next slide, please. Microenterprise assistance is something that we see consistent demand for in our program. And this typically funds business and entrepreneurial programs that provide technical assistance to LMI business owners. This helps businesses to launch, grow, and sustain locally owned small businesses. And we've steadily funded local community development financial institutions each year to run these programs. Next slide. Public facilities and improvements. This is a bit of a new one for this division. The past few years, we've started undertaking activities to do public facilities and improvements. But what this looks like is it creates new or funds capital improvements to existing public facilities, which can either be city-owned or private. And by private, I don't mean it's closed off. You can have a private public facility that looks like a homeless shelter, for example. It can be privately owned, but it's publicly accessible and publicly used. So we consider that a public facility. Just as an example, funding the addition of fire code compliant sprinkler systems is something we funded in last year's grant cycle for Safe Shelter's bed expansion at their Balm Grove location in West Asheville. Yes, Vice Mayor, you have a question?
Really quickly, something just occurred to me since Ms. Santos was on the call. Could that look like providing repairs to Eddington Center as a public facility?
Yes, that would be an eligible activity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. the Community Development Division has recently started directing any funds that we have left over in each program year toward city-owned public facility improvements. And a couple examples of that are the Cox Avenue and Patton Avenue sidewalk improvements. So if you go to the corner of Cox Avenue and Patton, you'll see a nice brand new curb cuts, expansions of the sidewalk there. It's the most beautiful sidewalk in all of downtown Asheville, in my opinion. But we did some ADA improvements there. We also did some work to rehab the Stevens Lee Community Center. And then we're currently working to fund the downtown skating rink that will be between Ashland and Cox Avenue. So that's just examples of public facility improvements that we've done in the past. Next slide, please, Katie. So for these non-public service activities, so housing services, microenterprise assistance, and public facilities, the eligible applications that we got last year represented only 56% of the available funding we had. So there is an opportunity and a need to broaden the pool of applicants to internal city projects. And that is what we'd like to hear from this committee today, is your thoughts on that. As you can see in the table below here, the amount requested for non-public service type funding was 548,000, and we were able to fund up to 694,000. But 146 is what we had remaining for set aside for contingency for public facilities and improvements, and that's how we were able to support the skating rink downtown as a public facility. We had funding remaining. We were able to move that over to the side and say that can help fund that skating rink project. So what we'd like to be able to do is consider opening up this portion of our grant to internal city projects. So asking other departments here at the city of Asheville to apply for CDBG funding for public facility improvements. Next slide, please. So there's potentially lots of worthy and eligible projects that fall within the non-public services, public facilities and improvements category. Internal city departments are working to identify improvements to existing and new public facilities in LMI income areas that would not otherwise be able to be funded. So just some examples of departments that could work with us are capital management, parks and recreation, stormwater, and public works. So where our CDBG DR disaster recovery program will be funding large storm-related improvements, there's still an opportunity to use our annual CDBG entitlement funding to make targeted investments that don't necessarily get to that $5 million scale that DR might do, but making targeted investments in LMI neighborhoods is what we would like to see. Next slide, please. So these are two of our recommendations, is to encourage internal city departments to apply for funding. This provides an opportunity to imagine new ideas and fill existing funding gaps. It would allow us to make direct investments in LMI neighborhoods to improve public facilities there. It could also help build citywide expertise in federal grant administration. There's a lot of federal funding coming to the city of Asheville right now for disaster recovery. We're getting better at doing federal grant administration, and this is an opportunity for us to also build on that as well. It could also help us to potentially develop a year-to-year pipeline of capital projects where if we see strong demand from internal departments for this funding, we might ask this committee to fund one project this year and that we could come back to other projects in future years. So it helps us to be able to build that into a plan year over year for capital project improvements. We would also ask to establish award minimums. This would reduce the overall number of awards and made to increase impact of investments that we make with the CDBG program. This would help us increase staff capacity to effectively administer grant agreements, as well as the additional administration that has come on for disaster recovery initiatives. And we would propose a public service award cap of award minimum, of $40,000 and a non-public service award minimum of $100,000. Yes, Sage.
James, could you talk a little bit more about this? I mean, the application pool is not significant. I'm just worried about the cap or the minimum, I mean, and whether or not we have some good projects and if it's really necessary. Can you tell us more about your thinking?
Sure. What we have found is below these thresholds. Well, for one, for non-public services, we haven't seen a lot of demand below that $100,000 threshold. Most of the projects that have come to us for micro enterprise assistance or housing rehab um, have not come in below that 100,000. So they're coming in saying we can do a lot with 150. We can do a lot with 200. With the public services side of things, again, that's capped at 15% of the program. We have not been able to see a sizable impact with that funding at less than that amount. We've funded projects in the past of, for example, $12 or $15,000, which it does make a difference and it makes an impact. But in terms of staff capacity and administration, it takes just as much time for us to administer a $15,000 contract, set that up, get the subrecipient on board, get them drawing the funds down, as it does a $40,000 contract. So this effectively would reduce the number of awards that we make to make a higher impact with the awards that we do make. And we're open to hearing other ideas around establishing award minimums. I think it would just help us to clearly communicate to the community and potential partners that we're looking to fund projects at a significant level so that we can see a sizable impact when we do make an award.
Okay, go ahead, James. Thanks.
You're welcome. Next slide, please. So what would this look like in practice? Again, I ran through the timeline earlier, but this would look similar to our regular funding cycle, except that we would solicit project proposals from other city departments alongside the typical external funding application process. We would evaluate those applications for eligibility, risk, and capacity to execute on them. We would then bring those projects to HCD to seek your recommendation for the selection of projects. And then in April, we'll get our formal HUD announcement of the funding amount and draft up our annual action plan. We'll do a public comment period, public hearing in June, and then get the action plan approved next summer, and then start implementing projects with the HUD approved action plan in July. So just to clarify, we wouldn't have any like a separate application cycle. It would be concurrent. It would be all at the same time, same portal for internal departments as well as external partners to come to us and submit their project proposals in January. Next slide. Again, we get about $1 million each year. We've historically funded really highly capable partner organizations to do projects on the city's behalf. The two changes that we are considering is to allow internal departments to propose projects to improve public facilities, city-owned or privately owned public facilities, as well as establishing some award minimums to achieve greater impact and improve our ability to administer this program. We'd love your feedback today on this proposed change. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? So I'll just go ahead and start by saying I like the proposal. I like that we might be able to get more impactful work done. And I also like that it would seem to be more in keeping with our staff capacity. So I'm appreciative of the opportunity. Anybody else? No?
No, I'm still processing it all. And I do like the proposal, but there are some times where I feel like organizations who are in their growth phase, they would really benefit from a small award from the city to see that they, so that other funders see that they're gaining a capacity to manage federal grants or government grants. But like James said, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of coaching, and sometimes those organizations need more capacity building. I don't want to throw away the work that we did in the past where we did give organizations that opportunity along with that coaching so that they can develop. And in the same sense, I see we have a lot of frequent flyers and they come to us very often. And sometimes they have big asks and sometimes they're more mindful. that the application pool is growing and they have to be more equitable even in their ask. So with that being said, I'm wondering if the people who come to us often, do we talk about sustainability? Do we talk about them growing a little more dependent and not relying on CDBG? And that's just all of my thought in one.
Those are great thoughts.
Yep.
I echo a lot of that, especially about the sustainability. And again, the minimums, I'll just share that. I wonder if it's something like if we're already just seeing those levels automatically and we're coming out of such a different kind of period of time, this recovery period. I wonder if we just maybe worry about minimums later, just kind of putting that out there. But the only other concern I would highlight is one maybe we didn't talk about, and that's just kind of like we saw with our kind of reactivating of the boards and stuff. I'm a little concerned people are going to be really far removed from this happening. Like this is in like 6 weeks, you know. We may need additional outreach to, I guess, I don't know how you do that, but I feel like people are checked out a little bit and I don't want people to miss the opportunity. And I don't know how we do additional, what to recommend there, but just kind of feeling that participation in city staff has been lower and people feel and it's not really anybody's fault. It's just what is happening out there, I think. So just kind of giving some attention to that. But I'd be fine. I'm mostly fine with it. I just highlight the minimums, but we won't know if it's a problem if we install them. And if we don't install them, we might find out if it's changed.
So thanks, Sage. I have a question. So I'm kind of pivoting just a little bit, kind of going back to something that Councilwoman Smith said um, about smaller awards. I know last budget cycle we did not fund the strategic partnership grants. I'm wondering if for this next budget cycle we decide to fund strategic partnership grants, what percentage of the folks who applied for this one at a lower amount would potentially be eligible for some funding from that pool? Maybe that's not a question that can be answered now, but I hope that's a question that can be considered.
And refresh my memory, we decided to discontinue strategic partnership. It was a financial reason, but sometimes I forget the why. I just know that we're not doing it anymore. Can somebody give me a refresher?
I wasn't under the impression that we were not going to do it ever again. I thought that the reason we decided to not do it last budget cycle was because our budget was so tight. Again, after Helene. Um, but you remind me, because I know that came to the then equity committee and then that committee is no more. So maybe there's more that I don't know about that someone could tell me. But that was my understanding of why, almost like it was on a pause.
Yeah, it was on a pause, but it seems like we remixed it a couple times because when I first came on council, strategic partnership was just for any nonprofit organization. But then we narrowed the focus to preface
Education.
organizations, yeah, to close the achievement gap or educational related organizations. I don't know what we want to do now because the climate has changed and nonprofits funding needs have changed because so many federal cuts have caused organizations who were normally reliant on government funding to now come into the foundation and philanthropic world. So much has changed. I don't know what the current need is. Staff will probably have a better read on what the need is. And if we need to reinstate strategic partnership for, to fill in some gaps. And if we want to repurpose that to go back to its origination, which would be to serve more NGOs.
Mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
just share like that this is a really great conversation and that you're absolutely correct. We paused the strategic partnership grant process last fiscal year due to budget constraints. The same was true about the general fund allocation to the Housing Trust Fund as well. So those were the two programs that the CED department had administered that saw the reduction in funding last fiscal year. But prior to, you're absolutely right. The scope of the SB strategic partnership grants is exactly as Councilmember Smith was saying. So
So this is begging another question. I wonder what committee that would go to should we decide as a council to reinstitute strategic partnerships. Just something to think about. Would it be HCD, community development? I don't know. Would it something to think about? No answer today. Ben, are you coming up with something?
Well, I was going to say, I think probably take advantage of policy and finance since all the council members are on that. And I still think, just projecting a little bit, but I think a lot of the budget challenges we had last year will remain this year and probably be more challenging. So maybe PFI is a good spot because you got the full council and you can kind of bring to bear some of the financial challenges as part of that conversation.
Okay, makes sense.
I can get with Jade and put that on his radar. That may be something for a future PFI agenda discussion.
Okay, that sounds good to me. In council, do you have any more questions for James on this issue, or we can keep him around for the next item on our agenda? Okay, so the next item number 4 is home funding update and home ARP program update. James.
Hi, I'm still here. Yes, November 18th, 2025. We're still talking about home and home ARP update. So we can just roll to the next slide. So the other program that we administer in this office is not just our CDBG program, but the Home Investment Partnerships program. We also get about $1 million in that program each year to do housing development in our community. So the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium and City Council approved the FY 25-26 program allocations for down payment assistance, tenant-based rental assistance, and homeowner rehab. We have an application cycle that is open right now for potential partners to submit applications to us. So we are doing that to implement those resources on the consortium's behalf. Additionally, the city has contracted with ICF Incorporated to aid in implementing the one-time allocation of $4.7 million in home ARP funds. The application cycles for this funding will be launched in early 2026. Next slide. Just to give you all a quick update of one of the things we do with our home funding is we provide gap financing for affordable rental construction. One of the projects that we have supported with our home funding, as well as with city funds from the Housing Trust Fund and Land Use Incentive Grant, is Fairhaven Summit. It's located at 1 Wayman Boulevard in South Asheville near the intersection of Sweeten Creek and Mills Gap. We closed on that project in May 2024 with $400,000 in home funding supporting 5 units. That is a 77-unit, 100% affordable apartment building. It's Energy Star certified and includes on-site property management offices, exercise and community rooms, a business center, and an outdoor playground. So they're going to have a grand opening. Construction is complete on December 4th, and we're excited to go celebrate that with our partners at Fairhaven Summit. Next slide. So for the 2025-2026 funding, again, this is what's already been approved in this year's action plan. The Asheville Regional Housing Consortium and Council approved the below funding allocations. I'll just draw your attention really to the third line, which is tenant-based rental assistance for $300,000, down payment assistance for $400,000, and homeowner rehabilitation for $587,000. We do have some funding set aside to support community housing development organizations with their operating costs, as well as we pull aside about 10% of the allocation for city admin costs through this program too. And just a reminder that this program, because we're part of the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium, the city of Asheville is the lead entity. We're the presiding jurisdiction for this funding, but we make awards and funding is for the benefit of the entire consortium area. So that covers the 4-county region of Madison County, Buncombe, Henderson, and Transylvania, as well as the municipalities within that. So this funding is eligible and allowed to be used not just in the city of Asheville, but throughout this region. Next slide. So we have an application cycle out to move that funding for FY 25-26 to partner organizations for administration. We launched that application on November 10th, and it's running through December 10th. On January 14th next year, staff will be bringing the recommendations for funding to the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium and then to council on January 27th to authorize contracts and agreements to actually enter into partnerships with the organizations that apply. Next slide. As a reminder, we also in 2021 received a one-time award from the HOME ARP, that's the American Rescue Plan Act funding of $4.7 million. It's from the American Rescue Plan Act, but it's technically not ARPA funds. So y'all will remember that there was a whole ARPA program, ARPA funding cycle and awards. This is not that. Funded with the same bill from Congress, but totally different program. It has this similar characteristics to HOME, but it comes with some additional targeting for qualifying populations. Those qualifying populations are homeless individuals, those that are at risk of homelessness, people who are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking, as well as other populations that are at greatest risk of housing instability, like people who are extremely rent burdened. They're paying more than 50% of their household income toward their housing costs. So this is a program that we've had since 2021, and we're now moving forward toward actually getting that money out the door and doing some work with it. So what are we going to do? Next slide, please. So an allocation plan was developed and finalized in March 2023, and that allocation plan was adopted by council and submitted and approved by HUD. And it took that $4.7 million and dedicated $1 million to support services. And that looks like providing support to organizations that do mental health work as well as drug abuse services. They'll do case management to get people connected to services and housing, homelessness prevention services, and housing counseling. Excuse me while I take a sip of tea. The other major program that's funded with the Home ARP funding is the development of affordable rental housing. So that's a little bit more than $3 million. And that is intended to do new construction of deeply affordable apartment units, as well as could possibly do as well preservation and rehabilitation work. So taking an existing asset, bringing it up to new standards, and making it decent, safe, and affordable for a qualifying population household to reside there. We also were able to set aside a little over $700,000 for administration and planning. So that has helped pay for the actual development of the allocation plan itself back in March 2023. Excuse me. Pays for staff time as well as contractor support and professional services. Speaking of professional services, next slide, please. So we have partnered with ICF Incorporated to help roll out the funding for this program into projects. The funding of this for this contract with them, by the way, ICF is a organization that does consulting work in housing development, all things CDBG, CDBG-DR. They're a highly regarded, very professional organization. We're super happy to have them on board. And we're able to pay for the funding of that contract with our planning and administration portion of the grant. So that was $700,000. This contract with them is a little over $400,000 over the course of 3 years for them to roll this program out. And it is A to Z program rollout, including policy and procedure development, application development and rollout, project evaluation after we receive proposals from potential partners, as well as the development of agreements and contracts to get us over the finish line to get these things funded. We do anticipate 2 separate funding rounds in spring 2026. The first is for supportive services, and the second is for affordable rental construction. So different requirements, different organizations, very different characteristics for what we look to do with those 2 different buckets of funding. So it'll be 2 different funding applications for folks to come to us to do supportive services work, as well as for potential development partners to come to us with affordable rental construction projects. Next slide, Katie. So just as a reminder, just here to update you guys on where we are with the home program. We're running an application cycle for the FY 25-26 funding to fund down payment assistance, tenant-based rental assistance, and homeowner rehab across the whole consortium area. We've launched that application cycle right now through December 10th for partner organizations to come to us to help us implement these resources on the consortium's behalf. And we've partnered with ICF Incorporated to help us roll out this one-time home ARP funding. And we anticipate running application cycles for that funding in early 2026. I think that's all my slides. Is that right, Katie? Am I done?
Yep, that's the last one.
That's the last one. Thank you all so much. I'll be happy to answer any questions from this committee.
I don't have any questions. Council, anybody else have any questions on this? Sage, is this your, okay. Well-
No questions. It's just good to see the home art moving. You know, we juggled it for a long time. I was realizing that, James, in case you didn't know, we have been the HCD committee members for 5 or 6 years. So we actually lived through home art together.
Y'all have seen it from its nascence all the way to rolling out now. So we're excited. We have a spin down deadline of 2030. So 2030 is when I think August or September is when we have to have those funds out the door, or else they risk being reclaimed or recaptured by the feds. So we're trying to get this done and into really, really good projects. That I really love home art because it comes with some. The reason that we're rolling applications in the spring and not like now or sooner is we do want to do some technical assistance and some training on potential development partners in the area, because it comes with some additional requirements around that qualifying population characteristics. So you're not just renting to low to moderate income households, you're actually targeting your outreach and working with the continuums of care and other providers in the community to direct people who are that qualifying population into the housing unit. So in terms of, addressing homelessness, I think we're really excited to move that forward.
I think it's great. And thanks for pointing out, Sage, that we apparently are growing old together on HCD. But this is 5 years in for all of us together, at least. And I think Shanika even more. So thank you, James. No other questions. We can move on to the final item on our agenda, which is public comment. Katie, are there any speakers in the queue? Is the queue working?
Yes, the queue is working. I can hear it. I just reloaded. Let me just triple check. Alrighty, Madam Chair, we do not have anybody in the speakers queue.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Unless there are any other comments or questions, we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Okay, meeting is adjourned. See you all later today. Bye-bye.